myself Manan Devedi, and in the continuation of my lectures on international relations and international organizations, I am going ahead with a new section wherein we are going to talk about the People's Republic of China. It is the big dragon. When we talk about the big fire spewing and archaic dragon, then at that particular point of time, what we have to do is that we have to understand and we have to come to terms with the general hegemonistic and expansionist designs of the People's Republic of China. If we take the story all the way back to the initial touches between India and China, that because we will talk about it because we are dealing with the India-China bilateral relationships and the larger partnership. So we go back to the idea of Huan Sang, who visited for the first time in India. We all know it, it is there in the textbooks, it is there with the veritable bedlam in all the internet sources that we can lay our hands upon. So when we talk about China and India, then the journey in a way began with Huan Sang, who came to India, who came to Emperor Harshvardhan's place, where he had to look into the administrative, economic and the civil societal structure of India. Then we have the Dr. Kutnis. Dr. Kutnis came in here to China, where a pandemic had raged in China. He went there and he was able to suppress it, calm it down, and it was India's first contribution, first recorded contribution towards forging meaningful, fruitful and wholesome relationships between both the countries. That is the Indian Union, the proud Indian Union and the People's Republic of China. When we talk about People's Republic of China, everything was hanky-dory, and since the defeat of the nationalist forces of Kuomintang, who fled all the way, Chiang Kai-shek was the leader, who lost the battle to Mao Zedong, and he went to Formosa, that is the present day Taiwan. So this was the historical background under which the larger relationship between India and China had to develop. For example, if you look into the larger idea, then it was the 1962. It was a result of the India's forward policy, but we are not blaming India, we are blaming China, because since China broke away with its relationship with Russia because of a brief border skirmish, since then China had been looking askance for material possessions and for creating special auspices for itself in the Asian region, that is the Asian pivot of China, much separate in structure, much separate in tenor as compared to Hillary Clinton's Asian pivot in the 21st century. So 1962 war came as a great shock to Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, and it broke the backbone of the Indian moral idea. Indian morality, the way of non-violent foreign policy, the manner of inculcating ethics in the larger foreign policy, all those things were shaken up because of the China's border war, which started in November in 1962 and ended on 20th of October in 1962. So everything has never been very fruitful or congenial in the India and China relationship. We share a boundary of around 3,400 kilometers with China. So it happens to be an important and strategically significant neighbor for India. In that count, if you look into it, the 62 war exposed India for what it was. I am not being unpatriotic, I am not being non-critical, but criticality is considered to be one of the characteristics of academia. And as we are part of this particular exercise, as a citizen also we need to critique if we want to make India powerful and dominate over China. So 62 was a watershed in the relationship, which was followed by 1967, when the People's Republic of China exploded its first nuclear bomb in Lop Nor, and that really shook up the relationship once again. And if we look into the present day turmoil of India and China relations, then what we are going to find is that the heady stew, recurring border incursions, the recurring border interventions that occurred because of China into the Indian territory have been the bone of contention since India became independence. And what Chinese have been doing, they have been blaming everything on the Indian patrols. They have been blaming everything on the India's foreign policy, forward policy. Because of these particular ideas, the relationships has not been replete with camaraderie, good blood, but a lot of security dilemma, a great deal of mistrust, a great deal of suspicion towards each other's strategic and diplomatic intentions has ruled the roost as far as the general historical trajectory of the relationship between India and China is concerned. Now I would take up a few of the incursions. Incursions have been occurring since God knows, but since the last 72 years, since the time when India became free, when India became independent. The present day Pangong Lake intrusion and the kind of activity by the Chinese which we have seen in Lapthal, they all are a part of a trajectory of events that have been doing the rounds between both the countries. It was Doklam in 2018, much before it, it was Daulat Beg Oldie, much before it there was Sumdarong Chu. So these are the places which have actually been exposed before the people, which have come before the people, because otherwise there happens to be a media blanket ban, because the government also does not want the Indian citizens, the hoi polloi of the country to become disturbed, to become perturbed by the kind of show of strength which China indulges in every now and then. Now if you look into a treaty which is very pertinent in the context of the Chinese incursions, there is a 2012 treaty between India, a border treaty between India and the People's Republic of China, where what we need to understand and what we need to comprehend is that there is a great deal of undemarcated boundary. I don't, my defense Sathi know everything about it, my bureaucrat friends also know everything about it, but it's a kind of a reinstatement of the theme of 2012 treaty. It happened during the Congress regime. There it was a kind of a ad hoc arrangement which was initiated between India and China. The lieutenant generals of both the countries would meet regularly on the border, and what they would say is that sometimes the Chinese patrols are going to come inside the Indian territory, sometimes the Indian patrols would go into the Chinese territory, and that would create a lot of border and strategic confusion, a lot of strategic obfuscation, to use a word out of English literature. Now because we deal with this particular kind of a thing, then it was agreed upon by the lieutenant generals of both the countries that there will be a de-escalation in the tensions and disengagement which should take place if both the countries want to avoid a war. But I would personally feel that in the context of the post-truth age, where reality, where facts are relegated to the back burner, and instead of it, the idea of the post-truth, the idea of emotionalism, the idea of coming out with a lot of rhetorical diatribe against other countries, that happens to rule the roost. But it is not in the context of India and China that I am talking about. It is the general idea of going into a kind of a fervor against other countries. But in India it is not a fervor. India has been a victim of Chinese transgression, Chinese expansion since the last since the last 72 odd years, and that has to be rectified. 2012 treaty was a kind of a rejoinder for both the nations, and they abide by it to a certain extent. Then there is also a joint working group which is also in the public domain. It has met for around 14 to 15 times, which looks into the border tussle and helps in de-escalation of the border tensions between both the nations. Now, apart from this, China has always been a kind of a batenoid for India, and it is Michael Pompeo, if you take up a contemporary context, Michael Pompeo, the Secretary of State of the United States of America, has created an idea of an economic prosperity network, that is EPN. He has brought in the idea of EPN, wherein countries through the Quad approach, which is highly debated in MEA, and I have been part of those discussions, I have been part of those confabulations. So the idea is that it includes nations like America, New Zealand, Australia, South Korea, Japan and India, and they are being asked by President Trump to really fall in line with each other and not fall in line with America. That is the difference of argument that we need to cling on to, that should assiduously be embalmed in our memories, both diplomatic, strategic and political memories. So the general idea is that these countries need to come together and they need to form an economic and strategic grouping to control China's hegemony. So, against these different backdrops, one can have a look at the Chinese and Indian relations, and to cap it all, it was the visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi which brought us a lot of fruitful dividends in the city of Wuhan, which became the epicenter of the pandemic, and the terracotta warriors which were accosted by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, they happen to be a symbolic element of India striving for rapprochement, but with all the pride intact with People's Republic of China. I would like to thank the participants for being a patient listener to this brief presentation of mine. Thanks a lot.